Will Russia's attacks on Ukraine's logistics infrastructure shift Western support? After months of targeting military equipment on the front lines, from donated tanks to air defense systems and fighter jets, it seems Russia is running out of strategic targets on the battlefield. Now, the focus of its attacks is shifting. The new targets include production facilities, energy infrastructure, and, notably, ports and railways. Keep your eyes on the story. On October 20th, a report from Oleksiy Kuleba, Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister for Reconstruction, posted on Telegram stirred public attention. What happened? That very night, Russian forces launched another coordinated attack on Ukraine's vital logistics infrastructure. Ports and railways, the lifelines that transport aid and sustain the nation, were targeted. Even a traction substation in the Chernihiv region did not escape Russia's notice. This was not a random act, but a strategic decision rooted in a deep understanding of the conflict's dynamics. That night, 60 Geran UAVs and 3 Iskander missiles launched from Crimea played a key role in the operation. The attack was not concentrated in a single area, but unfolded in multiple waves across various strategic regions, including Sumy, Dnipropetrovsk, and Chernihiv. Each explosion was no accident, but the result of careful calculations aimed at disrupting and crippling the enemy's logistical capabilities. What is it that makes Russia so focused on Ukraine's railways, ports, and power grid? Why have these elements become such a disruptive focus in Russia's military strategy? The answer is quite clear. To those who understand the essence of modern warfare, logistics are the backbone of any military operation. Russia understands that by blocking key routes and cutting off backup lines, it can effectively choke the flow of support to the front lines. The damaged railway lines across various parts of Ukraine are not merely physical destruction. They represent a serious disruption to the movement of personnel and, more importantly, aid supplies flowing to the ports. These lines do more than just connect cities. They sustain the economy and, ultimately, Ukraine's ability to defend itself. A severed line means broken links to the front, hindering the movement of troops and equipment. It also means obstacles for the ports, which are vital gateways for exports and imports, disruptions that impact the very exports funding Ukraine's war effort. The consequences are significant. Military aid, whether weapons, ammunition, or equipment, must reach the front lines to be effective. If land and sea supply routes are compromised, deliveries will slow drastically, if not stop entirely. Imagine a truck full of ammunition stranded somewhere due to damaged rail lines, or a ship unable to dock because the port facilities have been destroyed. This isn't just about delays, it's about fundamentally crippling Ukraine's combat capabilities. Without sufficient supplies, frontline troops will run out of resources, morale will drop, and defensive lines could collapse. This is a classic supply-cutting strategy, and in the modern context, it remains both relevant and effective. However, a bigger question arises. If Ukraine can no longer provide significant advantages to the West, how likely is it that NATO will continue to uphold its commitment to military aid? Most likely, support will begin to dwindle. We can see a potential example if a government like Trump's decides to cut off aid to Ukraine. Much will depend on the specific details of what ending actually means in practice. This termination could involve a sudden halt to all assistance, including blocking allies from providing any support involving U.S. systems. However, it could also take the form of a more limited future cessation of aid by the United States, still painful, but less abrupt. Ultimately, countries will always prioritize their own national interests. If Ukraine is no longer seen as a valuable strategic asset, or if the cost of supporting it becomes too high, then it is only logical that aid would begin to dry up. On the other hand, Ukraine itself has made serious efforts to improve its military production capacity. But what exactly is Ukraine capable of producing on its own in the midst of this ongoing conflict? Ukraine currently claims it can produce around 30% of its weaponry domestically. This includes a wide range of armaments, from cruise missiles and drones, which have become a hallmark of frontline battles, to tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, armored personnel carriers, ammunition, and communication systems. The most notable improvement achieved by Ukraine is the explosion of its drone industry, which reportedly produced nearly 2 million drones in 2024. Ukraine has also begun planning joint ventures with Germany's Rheinmetall to manufacture artillery ammunition, and with France's Thales to expand innovation in air defense, radar, and electronic warfare. Similar discussions have also taken place with Poland. All of this highlights a determined effort to reduce reliance on foreign aid. But behind these impressive numbers lies a key question. How can these factories continue to operate and produce if Russia is also targeting them? This is the core of Ukraine's dilemma. Despite strong efforts to boost domestic production, Ukraine still heavily depends on foreign aid for 70% of its military equipment. Moreover, its domestic production capabilities face several significant challenges. Many of Ukraine's systems rely on components from other countries, meaning Kyiv remains dependent on foreign supply chains. Furthermore, Ukraine does not produce a sufficient quantity of ground-to-air missile defense systems, something critically needed in the current conflict to protect key facilities. And most importantly, Russia is actively targeting Ukraine's arms production facilities. Motorsyk, an engine manufacturer, and Antonov, an aircraft producer, for example, have reported combined losses of $601 million to their facilities between 2022 and 2024. This demonstrates that while Ukraine is making an effort, Russia is not willing to allow it to build a fully self-sufficient military capacity without resistance. Attacks on logistical and production infrastructure are part of a broader strategy to weaken and cripple Ukraine's military capabilities. Both Russia and Ukraine have taken their own measures, retaliating with various attacks and strategies. But among all of this, which offensive strategy do you find most striking? That's all for today's episode, and thanks for watching.